Imagine this. It is 1993 in Seattle, Washington. A young, towering NBA superstar named Scottie Pippen is in town, fresh off being drafted by the Seattle Supersonics before the historic trade that sent him to Chicago. He is 28 years old, already a rising legend, and one ordinary day, he crosses paths with a quiet, brilliant computer science graduate from the University of Washington, who has been living right there in Seattle since the late 1980s. They meet, they talk. No one knows it at the time, but according to Scottie Pippen himself, on stage next to Michael Saylor in front of the entire crypto world, that man introduced himself as Satoshi. Fast forward 31 years, and that same mysterious figure starts visiting Pippen in his dreams, dropping eerily accurate Bitcoin price predictions that come true again and again. Ladies and gentlemen, the man Scottie Pippen met in Seattle in 1993 could only have been one person. And today we are going to lay out the mountain of evidence that will leave you with zero doubt who it is. Let us start with the bombshell that broke the internet in November 2024. At the Cantor Fitzgerald Crypto, Digital Assets and AI Infrastructure Conference in Miami, NBA Hall of Famer Scottie Pippen sat on stage with Bitcoin maxi legend Michael Saylor. The moderator asked Pippen point-blank about his relationship with Satoshi Nakamoto. Pippen did not hesitate. He confirmed he physically met the man in 1993, in Seattle, long before Bitcoin even existed. Then he dropped an even bigger bomb. That same person has been appearing in his dreams ever since, feeding him Bitcoin price targets that have nailed major highs with uncanny accuracy. This was not Pippen's first tease. It started back on July 30th, 2024, when he first posted about dreaming of meeting Satoshi, who did not see me as just another player. By September 4th, he got specific. Satoshi Nakamoto visited me in my dream last night and predicted that Bitcoin would be at $84,650 on November 5th, 2024. Not financial advice. Bitcoin was languishing around $57,000 that day. Skeptics mocked it as a troll. But post-election, it surged to $70,200 on November 5th, then tagged $84,650 exactly 2 weeks later before pushing past $90,000. In December 2024, another dream. Satoshi whispering of an $81,000 dip before a $100,000 rebound. It played out to the dollar. And in July 2025, Pippen shared fresh targets, $233,000 Bitcoin by 2026, $1,000 Solana, $10 XRP, asking followers which hits first. These are not random shots. They are too precise, too tied to market pivots for coincidence. Michael Saylor's face in that moment? Priceless. Wide-eyed shock, hands clasped like he had seen a ghost, a nervous laugh, and later he privately warned Pippen to stop talking about it because Bitcoin maximalists treat Satoshi like a god who must remain anonymous. Saylor himself said on record, "I have not met Satoshi. I envy Scottie." On the PBD podcast just 2 days later, November 18th, 2024, Saylor doubled down. "I was uncomfortable. Bitcoin maximalists are very protective of Satoshi. We do not talk about Satoshi other than with reverence. It is almost like asking Jesus if he is coming to dinner." The clip exploded across X, racking up millions of views, 2.9 million on one post alone, and the crypto community lost its mind. Because suddenly, the wildest Satoshi theory had a direct eyewitness from one of the most famous athletes on the planet. Now, skeptics will say, Pippen is joking or trolling for attention. Fair enough. He is deep in NFTs and crypto now, launching tokenized bulls collectibles on Bitcoin with his Game 5 Ball project. But ask yourself, why pick 1993? Why Seattle specifically? If you are making up a story, why not say New York or Los Angeles where celebrities hang out? No. Pippen chose the 1 year and the one city that perfectly aligns with only one serious Satoshi candidate's real-life timeline. Nick Szabo. Nick Szabo graduated from the University of Washington in Seattle with a bachelor's degree in computer science in 1989. He did not just pass through, he lived there for years afterward, deep into the 90s, immersed in the emerging tech scene that would birth the cypherpunk movement. The cypherpunks, that loose band of privacy warriors mailing ideas about cryptographic cash in the early 90s, were Szabo's crowd. He opposed the NSA's Clipper chip surveillance push right there in Seattle, rubbing elbows with the exact thinkers who would later inspire Bitcoin. In 1993, Szabo was 29 years old, living in the exact city Pippen pinpointed, at the exact time Pippen was there, fresh off his draft drama. No other major Satoshi suspect, not Hal Finney in California, not Adam back in the United Kingdom, not Wei Dai anywhere else, and definitely not David Schwartz, who was living in Maryland working on completely different distributed ledger patents for the government, has any documented connection to Seattle in 1993. Nick Szabo does. It is not a coincidence. It is geography screaming the truth. And that Hungarian-American vibe Pippen described, Szabo's heritage fits like a glove. Even the initials flip. In Hungarian naming, family names first, so Nakamoto Satoshi equals NS for Nick Szabo. But the Seattle connection is just the beginning, the hook that drags you in. Once you are here, the real smoking gun is Szabo's 1998 masterpiece, BitGold. If you read BitGold side by side, with the Bitcoin white paper released exactly 10 years later in 2008, your jaw will drop. BitGold is Bitcoin in prototype form. Almost 80 to 90% of the architecture is identical. In BitGold, Szabo described a decentralized digital currency created by solving cryptographic puzzles using proof of work. The solutions are time-stamped, chained together in an immutable registry and secured by computational power, exactly how Bitcoin blocks are mined and linked today. Szabo even used the phrase chain of signatures and talked about unforgeable chains of digital property. He solved the double spend problem with a Byzantine fault-tolerant public ledger. He envisioned scarcity through difficulty adjustment. The only major pieces missing were Satoshi's elegant fixes, replacing Szabo's benchmark puzzles with Hashcash-style proof of work, which Adam Back invented later, and adding the longest chain rule to achieve consensus. Bitcoin is not a new invention, it is BitGold perfected. And BitGold was never implemented as code, just a blueprint, waiting for the right mind to build it. Szabo himself called it a system to mimic the security and trust characteristics of gold without trusted third parties, a phrase Satoshi echoed verbatim in the white paper. What is needed is an electronic payment system based on cryptographic proof instead of trust. Independent researchers have run the numbers. Stylometric analysis, forensic linguistics that compares writing patterns like scientists compare DNA, shows the Bitcoin white paper matches Nick Szabo's style more closely than any other candidate. In 2014, a team of 40 final-year students at Aston University's Center for Forensic Linguistics in the United Kingdom analyzed the white paper against 11 top suspects. Their conclusion? The number of linguistic similarities between Szabo's writing and the Bitcoin white paper is uncanny. None of the other possible authors were anywhere near as good of a match. They found dozens of rare phrases, identical punctuation quirks, British-influenced spellings mixed with American English, Szabo often writes that way, and even the same obscure technical terms used in the exact same contexts, like trusted third parties are security holes, a Szabo staple from his 1996 smart contracts paper that Satoshi lifted whole cloth. The white paper was even drafted in LaTeX, the open-source tool Szabo used for all his publications, a detail most suspects did not match. Jürgen Schmidhuber, the famous AI researcher, ran his own stylometry in 2015 and declared Szabo the closest match by far, with word-length histograms and character frequencies aligning at over 80%. Blogger Sky Gray reverse-searched phrases from the white paper and landed directly on Szabo's blog, unenumerated, completely independently of knowing Szabo was a candidate. Gray calculated the joint probability of a random cryptographer hitting all 4 Szabo-specific expressions, 1 in 1,000, and titled his December 2013 post, "Satoshi Nakamoto is probably Nick Szabo." Even Elon Musk, in a 2021 interview with Lex Fridman, said when asked who he thinks Satoshi is, "You can look at the evolution of ideas before the launch of Bitcoin and see who wrote about those ideas. It seems as though Nick Szabo is probably, more than anyone else, responsible for the evolution of those ideas." Musk stopped short of saying the name outright, but everyone knew exactly who he meant, and in 2025, with Bitcoin kissing $100,000 and beyond, that evolution is paying dividends. And here is the kicker that seals it. Satoshi Nakamoto never once mentioned BitGold in the original white paper, even though he cited Wei Dai's B-Money and Adam Back's Hashcash. Why omit the single most important predecessor? Because if Nick Szabo was Satoshi, mentioning his own 10-year-old work would have been a dead giveaway. It is the dog that did not bark, the silence that screams guilt. Satoshi later name-dropped it in a 2010 Bitcoin Talk post. Bitcoin is an implementation of Nick Szabo's BitGold proposal, but only after the code was live, as if testing the waters. Szabo also coined smart contracts in 1994 and spent the 90s writing about digital gold, trusted third parties being security holes, and the need for unforgeable digital property. His blog posts from 2005 and 2008 read like dry runs for the Bitcoin white paper, dissecting Menger's origins of money, railing against central banks, all in that same measured, precise tone. In April 2008, 7 months before Satoshi published Bitcoin, Szabo wrote a blog comment on unenumerated, saying he was trying to finally implement a live version of his hypothetical currency. "Anybody want to help me code one up?" Then suddenly, silence. Bitcoin appears 6 months later. Coincidence? Or the exact moment Szabo succeeded and decided to vanish behind the pseudonym? Adding fuel. Szabo allegedly backdated that post to December 2008 post-white paper, a classic misdirection, as Sky Gray noted in his analysis. Look at the timeline of denials too. Every time someone gets close, Szabo denies it calmly. "I am afraid you got it wrong doxing me as Satoshi, but I am used to it." A 2014 email to Dominic Frisby, author of Bitcoin, The Future of Money, where Frisby piled circumstantial mountains, timestamps matching EST, Szabo's zone, Freudian slips, and only one person in the whole world with the sheer breadth but also the specificity of knowledge. Nathaniel Popper, in his 2015 New York Times deep dive, echoed, "The most convincing evidence pointed to Nick Szabo," after grilling insiders who whispered the same. "He never gets angry like Craig Wright, never sues like others. He just smiles and moves on. Exactly how a privacy-obsessed cypherpunk who values anonymity above all else would behave if he really was the creator." And the slips keep coming. In 2017, on the Tim Ferriss Show, one of Szabo's extremely rare long-form interviews, he is talking about layered scaling solutions. At timestamp 1 hour, 35 minutes and 40 seconds, he says, word for word, Oh no, I'd definitely go for a second layer. I designed Bitco. He catches himself mid-word, pauses and corrects to Bitgold with 2 layers because it is not a stutter. It is not a mix-up. It is the subconscious speaking before the mask snaps back on. The full clip is still up. You can hear the exact moment the creator almost admitted it on a podcast with millions of listeners. One final piece most people have never connected. Satoshi's very last private email, April 26, 2011, was sent to Gavin Andresen. In it, Satoshi wrote, "I've moved on to other things. It's in good hands with Gavin and everyone." Then, he vanished forever. Fast forward 3 years to 2014, the Bitcoin conference in Amsterdam. Gavin Andresen is there. And who shows up in person for one of the only times ever on camera? Nick Szabo. They are photographed together, talking quietly off to the side while Szabo usually avoids every public event like the plague. Szabo has attended almost no conferences before or since. Yet the moment Gavin is in charge of Bitcoin development, the exact person Satoshi personally handed the keys to, Szabo suddenly appears. Not coincidence. That is the creator checking in on his baby one last time before disappearing for good. Now stack all of this together. Scottie Pippen's eyewitness account placing Satoshi in Seattle in 1993, the exact city and year Nick Szabo lived there, rubbing shoulders with cypherpunks plotting crypto revolutions. Bitgold being an 80 to 90% blueprint for Bitcoin, never coded, but screaming for implementation, with Satoshi's tweaks feeling like insider upgrades. Multiple independent forensic linguistic studies declaring Szabo the closest writing match by a landslide. Aston's uncanny 2014 verdict, Schmidhuber's 2015 histograms, Sky Gray's 1 in 1,000 odds. Elon Musk, Nathaniel Popper from the New York Times, Dominic Frisby, and countless researchers all pointing to Szabo as the most convincing candidate. Popper after chasing leads to dead ends, Frisby after 5 months of forensics. Satoshi mysteriously omitting any reference to Bitgold. The dog that did not bark, plus that backdated April 2008 Code 1-Up plea vanishing into December silence. Szabo's lifelong obsession with digital gold, smart contracts, and minimizing trust. The philosophical core of Bitcoin, from trusted third parties as security holes to Menger nods. The 2017 Freudian slip on the Tim Ferriss show, "I designed Bitco." The 2014 Amsterdam conference, Szabo's one public appearance the moment Gavin takes the reins. No other candidate comes close. Hal Finney. Brilliant coder, first Bitcoin recipient, but California-based, no Bitgold equivalent, no Seattle, and stylometry ranks him lower. Adam Back, United Kingdom-based, invented Hashcash, but nothing like the full architecture cited by Satoshi, so obviously not him. Wei Dai, East Coast, B money cited directly, disqualifying. David Schwartz, genius, but living in Maryland in the 90s, working on totally different government patents, writing style completely different, and has publicly denied it multiple times with zero reason to hide it now. Craig Wright, the courts have destroyed him with forged documents and zero code. Nick Szabo is not just the best chance at being Satoshi Nakamoto. When you line up the Seattle eyewitness, the Bitgold blueprint, the forensic linguistics DNA match, and 30 years of breadcrumb writings, the conclusion becomes inescapable. Nick Szabo is Satoshi Nakamoto. He met a young Scottie Pippen in Seattle in 1993, planted the seed of a revolution, and then vanished into legend, leaving the world the greatest gift in monetary history. Bitcoin, a digital store of value so perfect that it took another genius, years later, to build XRP and finally solve the one thing Bitcoin never could: fast, cheap, global payments. And if Scottie Pippen's dream visitor keeps nailing price predictions, From that $84,000 election spike to the $100,000 rebound and beyond. Maybe one day, Satoshi will finally step forward and say hello again. This time to all of us. Thanks for joining the case. Stay curious, stay holding. We explore the rails that lead to the future. See you in the next episode.